Hey everybody, Taz from Critical Thinking Anarchist here, and so I just wanted to try this take 3 on recording Quantum Leap first episode. I am so sorry about this. I recorded this while streaming the episode twice. The first time I didn't hook up the mic, so I had to re-record it with the mic attached, and then when I uploaded it, NBC flagged half the video for copyright infringement, of course. So take 3, here we go. The new Quantum Leap starts out with kind of a recap of the original show. We see some woman in a room surrounded by servers and freaks out. Then we see our new ensemble cast. I'll sum up the cast. So first you have Raymond Lee, who plays Ben Song and is the main character here. He's a scientist who has been in charge of the rebooted Quantum Leap project. Then you have his fiancée, Addison, played by Caitlin Bassett, who has no chemistry with Ben whatsoever. She was brought on to be the Leaper, but Ben decides to leap instead, which is part of the whole plot of this season. Next, you have Mason Alexander Park, who plays the trans non-binary DEI character Ian, who is Gushy of the show. We want to make sure all races are represented, so Nanrissa Lee plays Security Chief Jen Chu. And last but best is Ernie Hudson, who plays Herbert Magic Williams. And if you think it's a reference to the original show, yes, this is the same magic that Sam leapt into when he saved his brother in Vietnam. So the party is basically to introduce everybody to this new, larger cast because we can't just have a couple of people anymore. It's got to be an ensemble cast now. They did it with MacGyver reboot, they did it with the Hawaii Five-0 reboot, and they did it with the Magnum PI reboot. Basically, if it's an 80s show and they're rebooting it and it originally had a cast of 1 or 2 main characters, they're making them ensemble crews now. At the party, Addison has 0 chemistry with Ben, despite them having been together for years and being engaged to be married. Oh, apologize here. Nope, won't let me quite get there. And this is the part where I was having problems with earlier because... And... Oh, it won't let me show it. Okay. Anyway. What I was trying to show is the texts that were going on there. Oh, because it's at 341. Sorry. Should pay attention to my own notes. There's the notes. Hey, just gotta read out, you gonna do this? It has to be now. Our window is closing. Where are you, Ben? Call me. Running out of time. Just sent you the projections via email. Call me as SAP. That sounds about right. So we move on to Ben getting a bunch of these texts. So these are the texts calling me where I assume, mega part, blah, blah, blah. And then we jump to Ben in white tights and vanishing like Sam did years ago. So there we got him in the white tights going through the vanishing process. So we have some differences. In the original show, Sam supposedly vanished. However, they quickly adapted this to Sam's mind having vanished, but his body was still in the chamber, and it was just his mind traveling through time. They made many references to this as those people would be in the waiting room and look just like Sam while retaining their own thoughts. However, the Swiss cheese effect meant that they didn't retain any of this when they returned to their bodies, but both Sam and the person were left with traces of each other's neurons and mesons, which is part of what determined when, where, and who Sam was able to leap into. So the more closely they match Sam's brain, the better the chance that he leapt into them. This version of Quantum Leap actually makes a lot more sense when talking about leaping into other people rather than your entire body vanishing, or than your entire body vanishing without a trace. However, where it did not make sense was when the show ended and Sam never made it home. The original version. This is the original version. And Sam never made it home, and they weren't able to find him again. If they had his body in the waiting room and he was still leaping around time, shouldn't they be able to find out when and where he was by that person? So the reboot version moves that portion for convenience sake. Removes that portion for convenience sake here. In other words, it's easier to explain away why they were never able to find Sam if they don't have a body. So now Ben has gone back to the 80s, and we know this because NBC spent a bunch of money on David Bowie songs and played them and video, and the set looks very much like it's at a Universal lot set, and not real world at all. Everything is very close together, the buildings, the roads, etc., and Ben is very confused. And I will say, Raymond Lee is pretty exceptional as Ben's song, and I have no problems believing him as the character here. The leap is similar to Sam's first leap. Ben has almost no memory of his original life, why he's here, who he is, etc. He's trying to navigate everything with almost full amnesia and does pretty well. He watches his buddy, in quotes, in the van put on a ski mask and looks around the world. And again, I apologize. This is the first time I've been doing this, so we're just kind of going through. So Addison comes up and starts scolding him and is confused about him not having any memory of who he is or why he's here, despite that being a major factor in the original show. And, we knew that was a possibility. So she helps him get out of there and drive away as part of a heist. The gang's been put together, and this is also a DEI ensemble. Anyway, Addison finally works with Ben to help him understand who he is, what he's doing here, but then Ziggy goes down and she loses the imaging chamber. So she goes out, yells at Ian, who yells back at her because if Ziggy isn't working, then being able to talk to Ben doesn't matter since they have no idea what's going on. I agree with them in this case. They, whatever. So finally, Ziggy comes back up. Addison is able to help Ben out again, and they start trying to figure out what's going on. At first, this whole leaping into a heist thing is awesome. It's a great storyline that the original wouldn't dare to tell because it's not about helping good people who had something go wrong. Unfortunately, we find out that it's a cheap knockoff of Breaking Bad. The guy Ben is helping has a family, and his wife is going through chemo, and they've lost their business, are in the process of losing their house and everything else, and this is the only way for him to get the money he needs. The other two are criminals, so help them. So Ben and the good guy are told to go see Horace, who made a fake Hope diamond for them. Apparently, Ben speaks Romanian and several other languages. This was something Sam did as well, but the original show didn't really put it into play except for a couple of times, kind of more about, he could interpret like Egyptian symbols and things like that, but they never actually had him speak any different languages except the one time when he was in Lee Harvey Oswald. He spoke Russian. So anyway, back to the show. Horace decides he wants more money. Now I have a problem with this. So Horace wouldn't deal with two low-level lackeys that he's never met these guys before. He has no idea who these guys are. His business dealing is with the main bad guy. He wouldn't be dealing with these guys. So he wants more money. Like I said, he'd deal with the mastermind if he'd be doing this. So Ben, because he understood the Romanian portion here, it's just dumb writing. So Ben, speaks to him in Romanian, and he tells him, hey, I know about all your other dealings going on. So if you don't want me going back to our main guy, you better give us the diamond. And Horace is all freaked out. Basically, the only thing that it does is it shows that Ben is incredibly smart and has some latent knowledge. Now, in the next scene here, we have Jen trying to, hand in her resignation because it was her fault that this breach happened. Again, I don't quite understand the writing of this. There really isn't a reason for it. But Magic tells her, like, hey, you don't get to quit until we figure out what the hell happened. And I agree with him on this one. I do like Jen and Ernie Hudson have, the two actors, Nenrissa. The two actors have great chemistry, and again, everybody has better chemistry than Addison and Ben. It's insane. So he tells her, she doesn't get to quit until they figure out what happened. I actually like. I hate the writing, but I like the scene because I like that it shows off that they have kind of a good relationship, a good friendship. So they get back to the lair. Back to Ben again. They get back to the lair, and they tie him up with zip ties because they find out he is a cop. He's an undercover cop. Now, I'm not sure if freestanding racks were a thing in the mid 80s. To me, it seems more like a 2000s and later thing. It might have been the thing. Usually in the 80s, you're talking about, especially early 80s, early mid 80s. You're talking about these things were usually built. These buildings were usually built in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. So there were a lot about permanent fixtures. Now, so you got kind of two problems here. One, the freestanding shelves. It's a freestanding shelf. He can just knock the thing over, pull himself out. No big deal. The second thing is zip ties. Zip ties were not a thing in the 80s. They were very much not a thing in the 80s. Especially not as a means of capturing people, holding people. They would have had handcuffs of some sort because he always had handcuffs. That was the big thing in the 80s. Like, go watch like any 80s cop show, whatever, even in Quantum Leap, in several episodes of Quantum Leap. And they had handcuffs. And you wouldn't do it to a freestanding thing. You would have tied him to you would have him, on a bathroom pipe or something like that. Something that would have been very sturdy and very difficult to get out of. But again, lazy writing, whatever, I don't know. It makes for a quick scene. He easily escapes. On to the next one. So he goes to the party, and first he tries to talk to his buddy, and his buddy's like, well, hey, he figures out how to prevent the heist and comes up with a plan with Addison, and he talks to his buddy, and he's like, it's too late. You got all this stuff already going on. So instead, he kind of calls an ad lib, audible, whatever you want to call it. So he goes to the woman and tells her he's re-enabled everything and their plan is foiled, and she pulls her gun, shoots up in the air, and despite having 5 guys on screen pointing guns at her, and we'll see if I can see it here. Yeah, see? You got people like aiming at her. Despite that, nobody shoots her. And then suddenly they all disappear. And so does she, with the crowd, because reasons. So then we go to, they got to get the bomb. So he's got the bomb. And what does he do? He carries it because it's C4, it's stable. But then he drops it in a freaking sewer. An open sewer, no less. They open the sewer and they drop it in there. Somehow, all the C4 explodes and nobody gets hurt because reasons. So they catch the bad guys, they get the Hope Diamond back, and the good guys get a bunch of money from the people of Philadelphia while Ben leaps. All in all, it was an okay first episode. I think it would have been way more compelling if Ben really did jump into a bad guy and his only recourse was truly to prevent people from being hurt or killed instead of being this massively feel-good story that was a kind of like a thin, that was thin on plot and had lots of time errors. Just so many weird errors in there. Addison and Ben have no chemistry again, and their relationship hurts the show. So towards the earlier part of the show, Ian makes a reference at one point that they weren't even ready to start testing on leaps and were about 5 years away, which means Addison has no reason to even be involved in the project if she's not adding anything to it because she's not a scientist and isn't providing some sort of database knowledge. So she's the leaper. Well, she has nothing to do there. She's 5 years away from testing, so they have no point to bring her in. With Ben being involved with her and her being the observer, Ben is unable to do what's necessary in certain situations that may require intimacy. If you remember the original show, that was a big thing with Sam. Sam was married, but when he was leaping, he was unaware of this and could move freely within relationships required in each leap. He even mentions that fact to his wife. When he goes back, he doesn't remember the things because of the reverse Swiss cheese effect. And he says, hey, did I, he's like, I don't remember. He's like, did I ever do anything to hurt you? And she says, I never felt that you violated our marriage, something along those lines. So Addison, as the observer, she also isn't old enough to provide institutional knowledge like Al did for Sam. She's approximately the same age as Ben, so much of the world knowledge that she has, he also has. She can't provide any experience because she doesn't have any of that either. Magic would have been a much better guide in this respect, but I'm still okay with his role, which that's a different show. There are some cool things that they did stumble on in the later episodes of this show. So anyway, I give this like a 6 out of 10 for the first show. I'll try to make these a bit more timely. However, since I can't just screen record and talk while the show is going on, I'm going to have to try a different method. So this is one of the methods I'm going to try. I might try a couple different versions. I might go back to just the still pictures. We'll see. But in the meantime, I thank you so much for staying with me, especially if you stayed through the whole show. I apologize for stumbling over my words here. Like, share, and subscribe if you like this, and I will see you next time. Bye, everybody.